Welcome to Podsdale, brought to you by the City of Scottsdale. Join us to explore the stories that make our city a world-class community.
Welcome back to Podsdale, the official podcast of the City of Scottsdale. I'm Greer.
And I'm Gail. And today we're talking about the powerful late September monsoon that rolled through Scottsdale and the massive cleanup effort that followed.
City crews across Scottsdale worked through the night clearing roads, parks, and facilities. But storm response starts long before the rain hits. So today we're taking a look at what Parks and Recreation does to prepare for storms, how staff responded after this one, and the bigger story about why the Indian Bend Wash is one of the city's greatest success stories.
And joining us is someone who knows that work inside and out. We're here with Chris Walsh, Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation. Chris, thanks so much for being here on a busy day, as always, for Parks and Rec.
Thank you for having me.
Chris, before we get into everything, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you fell into this role with the City of Scottsdale?
Sure. I started my career nearly 20 years ago with the City of Scottsdale. I opened our Scottsdale Sports Complex, so our very first soccer complex, field sports complex right across the street from TPC. I've held several different manager roles. I was a head groundskeeper at Scottsdale Stadium working closely with the Giants, moved into a manager role, and have dealt for the last several years relationships with our golf courses, the Giants, and have now in this role. So
very cool. It's raining outside right now, actually, which is kind of ironic that we're recording this today on a day when it rains. But I did just want to talk a little bit about that storm that we had at the end of September. How does Parks and Recreation as a department coordinate with other city departments during immediate storm response?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're really fortunate, I would say, to have such strong relationships with our public safety teams, the emergency management group, our shoulders and drainage, even our constituent services teams who regularly receive calls about issues. So high communication with those groups is really imperative. I would be amiss if I didn't mention that we also have a really great emergency response on-call program, and kudos to those folks that, they're the folks that go out in the middle of the nights that are responding to trees down or any other sort of issues. So really does show their their commitment, I guess, to the city of Scottsdale.
Now, Eldorado Park saw some of the heaviest damage. What does the scene look like when your crews arrived, and how do you prioritize what will be repaired first?
Yeah, the storms back in September certainly had a really big impact. I think we received close to 4 inches of rain.
Yeah.
And that doesn't incorporate what SRP releases out of the wash. So, it was a major impact coupled with releases into the wash. I think the hardest part about kind of our crews is really waiting for the floodwaters to recede to then go in and evaluate our facilities. But prioritizing public safety within the park is certainly first and foremost. So we make sure that amenities are closed off if needed on the areas that we can get to, whether it's a sidewalk you can't pass past a certain point, making sure there's no other hazards out there. So that's kind of first and foremost. When those waters finally recede and we're able to kind of get out throughout the facility, I think that is where we saw some of the, expected damage. But this one was really interesting because, we've got ball fields that are on the west side of Eldorado along Murray there, along Miller, south of Murray. And typically when we receive those types of storms, we don't get water that high. We had come in to see the water was actually over all three ball fields, and those fields were essentially pretty well destroyed. Crews actually are just finally getting back to where we can get in there, and we're almost done remediating that damage.
Wow.
So,
and I will say, going back to that first question and how you communicate with other departments and just getting there at the beginning and seeing all the damage, it's working from a communication standpoint. It was really cool to see those pictures come in real time. Like there were lots of parks people who were out like at night, and they would send us the pictures, and we were going through them all and reporting on them. And so it's really cool to see how it all happened so quickly. And
it's really interesting too, not to kind of back up to your first question, when most people think about Parks Department, they think, of course, first and foremost about parks.
Right.
But our Parks Division, we cover, everything from the northern tip of North Scottsdale all the way to the Tempe border.
We're long and lean.
And we are long and yes, I would agree. And it's not just parks. We have our medians and rights-of-way crew. So when you drive down our streets, every median right-of-way, we are maintaining those. We maintain the landscape at the libraries, around the community facilities. So we have a pretty broad scope. And so when we do receive damage, we get a lot of calls from a lot of people.
Right.
So there's a tree in my yard, and it's your tree.
Trying to prioritize those, but our team does an excellent job as far as evaluating, communicating with leadership on that, and really identifying whether it's our own internal staff or whether we need to send a contractor out to make it a priority. So we do that.
So
really
what were some of the biggest challenges within the first 22 to 24 to 72 hours? Because you said, you said outright that those 3 ball fields were destroyed. Was there something even more aggressive than that you guys had to respond to?
Yeah, I think, there's certainly those elements in the park, and the destruction probably looked a little bit more, have a bigger impact, I guess, if you will. We had previously laid, as part of the tail end project of the Lakes and Irrigation Project, we were prepared and had installed about 75,000 square feet of brand new grass along 77th Street, just south of Murray. And it was about a week before, and we were watching weather. I think my wife could even probably attest that I am. If you want to know,
ask him about the weather at the dinner party.
If you want to know what the weather is, I can probably tell you. So we do track it closely from several different sources, and leading into that, they weren't calling for the amounts. It was, the messaging was more, everybody's going to get a shot of rain in the valley. And as I think it was Friday when the rain came in, I told 2 of my managers, I said, I'm starting to get a little worried about the new grass and whether it's rooted enough. And, sure enough, the next morning, as we started to see some of those floodwaters recede, we lost about 30,000 square feet of that. It just rolled it up like a rug. And of course, anything upstream, we get downstream. So we, not only had that cleanup to do, but, we also get the artificial turf mats from Continental, golf balls, anything really that's in the wash north of us. There's a good chance that it could end up either at Eldo or at Vista, or even in Tempe Town Lake for that matter.
Do we ask Mother Nature for a refund? City Council has drafted an addendum for Mother Nature to refund that grass.
You talked a little bit about, you put in that new grass and you were talking with your staff and you were worried about the weather. Before that inclement weather comes in, what kind of prep does Parks and Recreation take to prepare, especially for a storm of that magnitude?
Yeah, and it's really kind of a year-round preparation. Through monthly safety meetings, we typically cover with our staff things that are topical, right? So in the leading into kind of the spring, summertime, we talk a lot about, rattlesnakes, snake preparedness, bee control in parks. So we are constantly talking about public safety and just safety in parks really year round. But, kind of the immediate preparation the week or so leading in is making sure that barricades are proper, can be properly set. Our signage is all in place. We go out and actually a lot of our parks will pre-stage those items. So should those events occur overnight, public safety has those resources available to them to easily close a road or put up some caution tape. So
you say you pre-stage these events, and so what do you do? How do you decide which ones are high risk ahead of storms? Is there something that they're always at risk, or is there anything in particular that changes what's high risk for this storm, but maybe not the next storm?
Yeah, we treat really all storms the same. So there's certain crossings like at Jackrabbit, I believe, and Hayden. We know that's highly susceptible to flooding, and that's kind of one of the first ones to be closed. And we're really lucky to have such an experienced staff and such a tenured staff that really do know and have the ability to train the new staff that they bring on, that this is really important. So,
well, how do you train staff and coordinate all the stuff that you have to do? Because it is a massive project. I mean, Scottsdale's a town of 250,000 people, but there's a lot of traffic. We have a lot of visitors.
Yeah.
And, it could be a big event. How do you coordinate all that in the training?
Yeah, and a lot of it's just ongoing communication. And then obviously the safety trainings provide us a really valuable tool when everybody's in the same room that can hear the same message, and we set those same standards.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the Indian Bend Wash. I am not from Arizona, so when I came here and I started working for the city of Scottsdale specifically, everyone was talking about this Indian Bend Wash, and I legit had no idea what it was and what the history behind it was. And now that I know, it's very fascinating. So could you just touch a little bit more on the history of the Indian Bend Wash for our listeners?
Sure. And I would preface this with I will try to give a high-level background, but I would defer any and all historical facts and really awesome stories to, of course, Joan Fudala, who knows it best, right?
I have her book in my office.
My background will probably underserve the what really is the engineering what is an engineering marvel, right? I mean, it's amazing to see what it does and how it can protect homes and the city, but also the community impact that it has when there's not water running through it. So the vision of, Bill Walton and those leaders that they had years and years ago is truly impressive. So
I'm glad there's not a concrete canal, because what people need to understand is that would be a concrete canal instead of the beautiful area that it is.
Yeah.
And so it gives us something to be proud of, and it's really innovative. It's something that, wow, Scottsdale innovates in so many ways, and that wash is one of them. Take it away.
Yeah. So I
gave you a moment to think.
And I had to do a little prep work on this, but in 1959, actually, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who we still work with today very closely on our project improvements that we're focused on right now within the wash.
That's so cool.
They have oversight of those improvements, and we want to make sure that they're on board with those. But they had come to Scottsdale along with the Maricopa County Flood Control District, held some public meetings centered around really the flooding issues through Scottsdale. And the original solution was exactly that. It was a miles long, concrete channel that they were proposing. And I think, while it certainly met the need, it wasn't necessarily the most appealing idea to the residents at that time. So enter into the picture Scottsdale resident landscape architect Bill Walton, who my understanding is he wrote an editorial in the February 8th Scottsdale Daily Progress and proposed a greenbelt system, which is what we have today, which is really amazing. And the city appointed Bill Walton as the Indian Bend Wash committee chair, and he was really tasked with leading this effort. And the citizen committee then recommended to Scottsdale City Council that they should support a greenbelt of the parks rather than just this concrete flood channel. So in 64, the voters approved initially kind of a $1.5 million bond for parkland acquisition, because we didn't, at the time, I don't think we owned some of that land that we needed to kind of make this happen. And then private developers also own land within the wash and constructed golf courses.
Yep.
And we have a couple of those that are within the wash as well that kind of feel the impact from time to time.
I live
certainly.
over by Continental, and I always feel so bad when the rain just knocks them out.
Yeah, it's certainly an impact, but
it's a water hazard.
Yeah, that is one big. I would agree. That's one big water hazard. So after that was done, the Scottsdale voters actually then took it to kind of a bond funding proposal for this next implementation in, I believe it was like 1966, and it got turned down.
Yeah.
Initially. And then they had some additional flooding in 67 and 72. And the voters finally said, okay, maybe this is a pretty good idea.
The flooding, from what I understand, before the Indian Bend Wash was created was like detrimental. Am correct? Like
it was massive.
Took out houses.
It was devastating.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's certainly the levees and the control measures we have there today. So still, this was obviously before they decided to do the Greenbelt. But, and once the approach got approved, I think it was a $19 million bond in the early 70s. The project was then a go. Mm-hmm. So, and it's what you see now out there with all the activity and the trails and the baseball field. So pretty awesome to have that foresight.
Definitely.
Well, that wash is designed to carry a massive amount of water, and there is a lot of water that goes through there. How is it holding up after all these years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think overall, the function of the wash still functions as it did in the early 70s, mm-hmm. right? It's controlling, I believe it can control up to like 30,000 CFS.
Wow.
Which is a lot of water. I think the storm that we had in September, we were probably anywhere between 10 and 15,000. So when you think about from that level, and how much water we had, it's prepared to take double.
Wow. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You never know when you'll get the 100-year flood.
When we get, close to 4 inches and our average rainfall is really closer to like 8.5 for the entire year, there's going to be an impact.
Yeah.
So,
and again, going back to park staff being out on the scene, the pictures I was getting back from not really ever experiencing such a large scale monsoon in Arizona, the pictures I was getting of cars and debris, it was just insane. I hadn't seen that before. So it was really cool not even cool, but it was interesting to see how it all functions.
It really does show you the power and the movement of water and, the importance of if a road is closed, don't enter a wash, those types of things.
Sure.
And people don't understand the power of Mother Nature. Water will move you and quickly. I mean, if you think about it, they tell you that in just a few inches of water, a child can drown. But think about when you have a car going through the water, you have a few inches and your car starts floating and then your car flips over and then you're trapped. And so people really need to understand that is, even though it's beautiful and the Greenbelt is doing its job and it's carrying water out, you can't just go wading through there. There has to be some education for people.
Yeah, there's, you'll have the social media post about a kayaker mm-hmm. or somebody tubing. Those are all bad ideas.
Yeah.
You want to stay clear of those waters. And our public safety team wants you to stay clear of those waters, even though it's, seems exciting.
Yeah.
It's best to stay
not a great idea.
Yeah.
Do you is there like any specific maintenance that you have to do specifically to the Greenbelt during seasons when it's not raining to ensure that it's good?
That's a fair question. And I do think that during monsoon periods, the winter time when we get kind of the heavier rains, our staff is challenged with making sure, drains are clear that are going under roadways or any park inlets are clear so the water can be received into the Indian Bend Wash. We have a lot of silt that comes in, whether it's from SRP MIC or, just off of the streets. So from time to time, our Bermuda grass will adapt to that. Mm-hmm. And if that silt sits within a park, there's potential there if it's not addressed or cleaned up that, it does change the topography of kind of that landscape a little bit, which could lead to some small ponding issues later on down the road. So we're always trying to be cognizant of those types of things.
Working on the communication side of things, we obviously aren't out in the field with you, but we get all these photos and these videos and we post them online. And the response that we've gotten, specifically with the storm and the cleanup, was just really large. I hadn't really noticed. I mean, obviously, Scottsdale residents are very thankful of their city employees, but the amount of appreciation I saw over our social media channels for our parks team specifically was really, really impactful to me. Can you touch a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I certainly can. Because we don't always hear the good stuff.
Right, exactly.
We have a lot of parks. We do our very best to address any sort of issues. So hearing good feedback from our residents is always a great thing, and we appreciate it. And I would say that our staff on this latest storm, with specifically the sod cleanup, was a tremendous effort, division-wide. And we pulled a lot of resources and a lot of staff immediately down there to get this cleaned up and repaired, because really our sod installation window during that time was really shrinking. Bermuda grass is a warm season grass, so it's really driven by temperatures. And the teamwork that I saw amongst the 20 plus employees alongside their managers who were out there in lockstep with them was simply awesome to see. Specifically the employees that maybe don't work down there every day,
Sure,
that came in to assist the day-to-day crew that's responsible for Eldorado. So I can't thank that team enough. It's pretty impressive.
It was all hands on deck.
It was.
it was.
Yeah. And even solid waste had some unique equipment that we didn't do, or that we don't have in our inventory. And so, they brought us the roll-off dumpsters. They brought some equipment. They had staff running.
Great.
So yeah, a true kind of city department effort, and we couldn't have done it without all of those resources for sure.
Well, it was so nice talking to you. And I know we're talking about the Wash, but the next time we have you on, and I know you can't pick your favorites because they're all your babies, but I want to know what you secretly think is the prettiest park in Scottsdale.
Oh, that's a really good question. There's so many.
Do
Yeah.
you have a favorite or a specific one that you enjoy more than others?
I started my career at the Scottsdale Sports Complex.
Okay.
So those facilities and kind of help design and build, Bell 94 and Riata Sports Complex.
Yep.
And you can take your pick of those three facilities, and they are just, magnificent.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't grow up playing on sports fields like that. And they do such, they move such a needle for us from a economic perspective with all the tournaments that we have year round.
Sure.
So those are certainly up there. I don't want to disappoint anybody or any of my staff.
He didn't say Eldorado. What's up with that guy?
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on today. Before we head out, do you have anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Well, we got him to not name a favorite, so there's that. Maybe next time.
Sounds good. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thanks.
That's all for this episode of Podsdale. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. Share episode ideas and provide your feedback by emailing communications@scottsdaleaz.gov. Thanks for listening.